Do we test the panelist mics?
Testing.
Can we test the panel mics?
Testing.
Testing.
Oh, testing. 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 We are here at the Arlington School Board meeting on Valentine's Day. Welcome. Hello, this is Erica. He told me to keep talking, so I'm just going to keep talking. Testing, testing. Is that better? Does that sound good? Yeah, yeah. Testing, 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 testing. Doesn't sound very good. Testing. Testing. Testing.
Testing. Testing. Testing.
Test. Testing. 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 Testing.
Testing.
Testing.
Test. Test.
Testing.
Test.
Testing. Testing.
This one will be Maddie. She's going to be coming right after work, so she might be a little bit tardy.
Test.
Testing, like this. Testing. Can you hear me talking on Zoom?
Barely.
Can you hear me talking on Zoom?
Thank you so much.
Can you hear me talking on there?
We just use
No.
this mic.
All right. Okay.
I can't hear anything from anyone.
Test, test. Andrea, we're
Hear you
doing a
now.
test. Could you talk, please?
Yes, I am here via Zoom. Looking forward to our second meeting of February.
Yes, if you can continue to talk while we test the
Okay.
sound.
I will read what is in front of me. Arlington Public Schools, educate, prepare, and inspire. Regular board meeting, February 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Welcome.
Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate you. Thank you. Was it Sherry? Somebody was talking.
It was Sherry Kelly.
Testing. Welcome. It is 6:02, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Thank everyone for joining tonight. I want to acknowledge that we have people attending both in person and on Zoom. We ask for your cooperation and support as we work together to have a successful in-person board meeting. As a reminder, face coverings are required according to the Open Public Meetings Act for everyone here at the BPAC. The goal tonight is to have a successful in-person meeting. So if this requirement is not followed, I will provide 2 reminders. If the reminders are not successful, I will ask that the meeting room be cleared entirely with everyone exiting outside the main BPAC front doors. All people not responsible for the disruption will be readmitted and the meeting will continue. If another disruption were to occur, I will stop the meeting and move it to Zoom, which would begin 60 minutes later. The goal tonight is to have a successful meeting. This is the board's business meeting where we are focused on taking action to support our mission to educate, prepare, and inspire every student to graduate and seek their full potential as lifelong learners. This meeting is being streamed live and it's being recorded on the school district's YouTube channel. Now, Dr. Sweeting will share the land acknowledgement.
We honor the first peoples of these lands by acknowledging that the area in which we gather is within the traditional territory of the Stillaguamish tribe of Indians. The Stillaguamish people have inhabited these lands and waters since time immemorial, and their ancestors have remained in this territory to this day. The Stillaguamish people have continued to practice the traditional ways of their ancestors of fishing, hunting, and gathering. The Stillaguamish tribe has had these lands and cultural traditions passed on to them by their ancestors who believe that everything has a spirit and that they are caretakers of these lands and waters.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the clerk please take the attendance?
Director Ray,
Here.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Kingman,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Andridge,
Here.
Student Advisor Schroeder,
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as proposed?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as proposed.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we are ready to take the vote to approve the agenda for tonight's regular meeting.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director
Agenda is adopted. The next on the agenda is the approved from January 24th. Are there any changes to the presented minutes?
I'd like to propose we change under roll call attendance. After sentence 2, it ends with Zoom meeting. I would delete everything following in that kind of paragraph, shall we say.
So Director Ray would like to amend the minutes to delete everything after the word Zoom in the second paragraph or the second sentence of the first paragraph.
that-
Remind me which paragraph you're talking about.
So under roll call attendance, the second sentence ends in Zoom meeting. The third sentence begins, there were several audience up to the parentheses. It just seems like it's extraneous wordage that doesn't really belong, in my opinion.
Okay, so Director Ray would like to remove the sentence after the second sentence of the roll call attendance. Is there a second for that amendment to the motion?
I'll second.
Director Kingman seconds that.
Director Ray,
I think the motion, Debbie, is to approve the minutes with the amendment from Director Ray. I think we can vote on that now.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Minutes are approved. The next on the agenda is our public comment portion. I'm going to read a script for our public comments. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in its meetings. The board appreciates feedback in order to make the best decisions possible to benefit students. In order to permit fair and orderly expression of public comment, the board will provide a period of time at the beginning of each regular meeting during which visitors may address the board on any topic within the scope of the board's responsibility. Anyone addressing the board tonight, whether it be in person or virtually, has completed a public comment form and read and agreed to the district's instructions for public comment prior to this meeting being called to order. When the board president calls your name, please step up to the microphone if attending the meeting in person. If attending the meeting virtually, please join as a panelist, allow video, and unmute your microphone. Please refrain from comments that are an invasion of privacy, violate school district policy related to harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination, are disruptive, irrelevant, libelous, slanderous, or profane. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The board does not respond to questions during the business meeting in order to comply with the State of Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. The board's silence does not signal agreement or endorsement of the speaker's remarks. Depending on the nature of your topic or questions, the superintendent may ask staff to contact you to answer questions or provide information. If you requested a follow-up response on your public comment form, you will typically receive a response within 5 business days, depending on research required. The board president may interrupt or terminate an individual statement if it is uncivil or exceeds the allowed time. Each speaker will be given 1 opportunity to speak. First, we will hear from public comments from members of the audience in person. Then we will hear from our members of the audience on Zoom. We have 5 attendees in person, and I believe we have 1 on Zoom. When I call your name, please approach the microphone and wait until the timer is ready. Angela Kuhn is our first public comment speaker. Angela, you may please approach the microphone. We only have one time on our agenda for public comment. This is your opportunity to speak. Angela, would you like to speak tonight? Is Cory Henderson? Cory, you may come up to the microphone.
Is my time started?
Madam Clerk, is our time going?
It's going.
You may speak.
Members of the board, never before in the history of Washington has your job been so difficult. I extend my gratitude for your service. Since the National School Board Association has attempted to weaponize the FBI against concerned parents, excuse me, I'm unfortunately compelled to state this disclaimer. This letter and the enclosed documents that you just received are in no way meant to cause you to feel threatened in any way. I hope that you see these documents as an opportunity to receive support. The enclosed public disclosure requests, PDRs, have been served to all directors of the Arlington School District. Many districts across the state, including Seattle School District, and several more throughout King County will be or already have been served the same documents over the next 30 days by thousands of parents statewide who have come together as a unified voice. To ensure that this effort is recognized as a demonstration of support, the Arlington County Sheriff has also been given a copy of these documents and informed of our peaceful intent. We recognize there is a fundamental conflict of interest between school government and parents. School government has a vested interest in the system as a whole, while parents have a vested interest in their children. We have identified that the source of this conflict may stem from the fact that that our local school boards have been forced to give away increasingly more decision-making authority to the Washington State School Directors Association and other state agencies. The Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Reichdahl, has clearly threatened to withhold taxpayer funds that rightly belong to our school district based on whether or not we comply with health policies we may or may not agree with. Nowhere in the revised code of Washington is the power granted to Mr. Reichdahl or the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction to withhold or bribe the funds, or bribe with the funds they are tasked to dispense to local districts. Is it possible that if Mr. Reichdahl indicates or acts on the threat of withholding funds, this would imply extortion on his part? Interesting question to ask. We, the people, founded this country with a structure that was designed to keep the greatest authority at the local level of government. Yet, our governor and state agencies have made unilateral decisions for the whole population while ignoring the voices of local school boards and parents. Perhaps we lost sight of the original vision of strong local authority when we let state and federal agencies like WASDA, OSPI, and the National School Board Association gain enough control to withhold our state funding over matters that should be a personal medical choice for every citizen. All of us are here, all of us share the responsibility of getting ourselves into the dangerous predicament of a few people dictating to the masses. We also share the responsibility of getting ourselves out of this predicament. And there is a solution and a path forward. The documents enclosed are our first act of helping you, our local school board, take back your rightful authority to determine how best to represent the parents of this district.
Thank you, Cory. Your time has expired.
I thought I had the other 3 minutes from
Each-
Angela.
Each speaker gets 3 minutes. It's in our policy. We're
Right, but-
following our policy. Cory.
But it was just discussed, and I know you guys talked about it, was nodded, and was given to me the additional 3 minutes.
Cory, thank you for your time here tonight. Our next speaker is Kinsey. Our next speaker is Karen Lewis. Karen Lewis, you may please approach the microphone. After Karen will be Kinsey Marchand.
Hi. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. My name is Karen. I have 2 children in the Arlington School District. I am speaking out against the current one-size-fits-all mask mandate. I believe strongly in personal accountability and responsibility. And the simple fact is that the vast majority of kids are not at risk of serious issues from COVID. And many people, especially children that test positive for COVID, are not exhibiting any symptoms. So why the mandate that all children wear masks if they are completely healthy? Even Dr. Fauci has finally stated asymptomatic people are not the drivers of this virus. Yet schools are requiring some of the most strict and sweeping mandates of all to our least vulnerable population. Did you know healthcare providers in Washington can test positive for COVID and go to work that same day? They're not required to quarantine as long as they do not have severe symptoms or their symptoms are resolving. Yet our children are forced to go through testing in order to participate in some sports earlier this year, when they still had test kits, while exhibiting no symptoms and in an extremely good physical condition, and then forced to miss school for at least a week of class if positive. When my children attended Eagle Creek Elementary, the staff would tell us at conferences that attendance had a very strong correlation with performance and success in school. Are we not concerned that these very hypocritical and arbitrary rules that my children are picking up on every day are undermining their faith in the honesty of adults and authority? Why would a high school science teacher tell kids that mesh masks help stop the spread of COVID? Why were children required to eat at lunch with no table, 6 feet apart, and told not to talk to their friends, while teachers were socializing and families were going out to eat and magically could sit at tables without masks as they visited, ordered, and ate their food? Winter athletes are masked up while participating and the band is canceled to play at games. Yet professional sports, concerts, theaters are held with thousands in attendance, many with no masks, all across the country and in Washington State. Did you see the stands at the Super Bowl? NFL stopped testing for playoffs. Positive COVID tests would have been bad for business, I guess. Since the pandemic began, the goalposts have continually moved each time we get near the goal line. This began as a 2-week shutdown to flatten the curve, and here we are 2 years later fighting to give our children their normalcy back. Events such as school dances canceled, sports and concerts canceled or reduced, as nearly everything else around in our community and the rest of the world is returning to normal. I am asking our schools to do the right thing for their children, my children. Their school performance and mental health are suffering. Statistics are proving that. Public schools are responsible for the education of children. I hope that is the highest priority and we begin the process of giving parents back the right to make medical decisions for our own children.
Thank you, Karen. Our next speaker tonight is Kinsey Marchand. Kinsey, can you please approach the microphone?
Hi, my name is Kinsey Marchand, and I'm a student at Post Middle School. Today, I'm going to talk about lockers. What most students look forward to when going into middle school is using a locker. Me and many other students were very disappointed when we found out we weren't able to use a locker this year. Many students and myself have also talked about how heavy our backpacks are. It's just way too much for us. We can also prevent students from leaving things in classrooms such as lunchboxes, gifts, school projects, and more. Not to mention, some of my friends have ripped backpacks and/or are now on their second backpack due to the weight, and some families can't afford to buy multiple backpacks. For some reason, we're allowed to gather in the gym locker room and use our gym lockers, but not allowed to use our hallway lockers. I would like to present the board 91 signatures of Post Middle School students in my backpack so you can feel the weight. Thank you.
Very well presented. We also have another in-person speaker, Sarah Marchand.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Sarah Marchand. I am a mother of 3 students in this district, and I'm also an employee in 2 schools. My point of coming up here is to talk about the relationship between the board and the community, because we're starting to see a lot of tension. Obviously, it's been building up. Ms. Levesque, I'm not sure if you're aware, but a few meetings ago, you were eye-rolling through one of the meetings. And there was a mother speaking about her kids and about her place in the community. And I was kind of shocked because I was wondering if you realized you did it or if I was just seeing things. But then I continued to get some text messages from community members. And when I went to work the following day, people were talking about it. This town is small. And the meetings following, I'm starting to recognize where people lie politically, which I don't think has a place for situations that we're dealing with, especially with what this pandemic has done to families and to employees, to students, to community members. I shouldn't know the political motivation from anyone on the board. No one on the board should I know where you stand or that you're activists in the community for politically driven reasons. I should not see that on your Facebook profiles that you've created private events to solicit members of the community to come to these meetings to further your personal agenda. And we certainly, when we're putting masks on our kids and masks on our employees and saying that we need to lock down and we need a social distance, should we see you in pictures or in public with no masks on and gathered for your own reasons, which is all the reasons that all of us get together for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. And we're watching all these local businesses get shut down. We're watching people get shut down. We're seeing our kids have impacts where they don't feel comfortable with their peers, with their teachers, and it's causing this friction between everyone. And I don't want to see that from board members, and I'm sure you don't want to see that from us. And there becomes a point of trust that gets breached. You need to trust us that you're safe on that stage, and we need to trust you that our children's education is your first agenda, and that our livelihood is your first agenda. I felt like Ms. Levesque, as president, I felt like you had an opportunity last board meeting to address one woman who didn't want to wear her mask, because people are frustrated. We're seeing this uprise in the state of Washington where people are seeing other states and Super Bowls and concerts where people are not wearing their masks. Hollywood elites get to have Academy Awards and attend some of the richest places, and they're not masked up. They don't have to disclose if they're vaccinated or not. And I felt like you had an opportunity to communicate with one person But it's not one person, it's many people. And tonight again, Cory asked for a few more minutes so that he could finish his statement. And that was your opportunity as a leader to show some leadership and to make us trust you and to bridge this gap that we have between the community and you guys. And just so you know where I come from, my husband served 20 years in the Marine Corps. And after he retired, we traveled the United States and we didn't know where we were going to settle down, where we were going to raise our kids. But somehow we went from working with a realtor in North Carolina and we ended up locking wheels in Arlington, Washington. And I love this place. And this is where I want to call home. This is where we want to raise our kids. And I know the good Lord put us here for a reason. And so with that, I think that we all need to work together. And I also would like to add to this that these people are all good people. This community is good people. Arlington is good people. And I know that there's been, you know, we're on this political divide.
Sarah, I have to interrupt because your time is up.
Okay.
I'm very sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Our next public comment is a panelist on Zoom, Molly Baker. Madam Clerk, will you please advance her to panelist?
Hi, sorry to navigate that. Hi, good evening. I've listened to other board meetings where each director in turn has explained their reasons for voting yay or nay on a decision before the board. I've listened to numerous comments from board members over the past 2 years explaining their position on reopening schools with much discussion from each board member before taking a vote. Board Policy 1815, which the board passed with 4 out of 5 votes last meeting, states school directors should be as open as possible about their decisions and actions. At the last school board meeting, we were given no reasons for the decision by a board member to not vote to pass 5 policies. Those included 1815, 1825, 1822, 2418, and 3116. I would like to know which one or all of the 5 policies were being objected to and the reasons for objecting in order to build understanding, trust, and openness. Also at the last board meeting, Policy 1600, an agreement between the board and the superintendent to work together, was voted on with the 4 to 5 directors voting for it and 1 abstaining. So again, I would like to know the reasons why an agreement between the board and the superintendent is objectionable to merit a decline to vote, and if abstaining also means a refusal to sign Policy 1600. I am really struggling trying to make sense of why a school board member would vote no or abstain from policies that benefit our students and staff. You all were elected to represent our community, so I need more explanation as to why you would oppose practices that are beneficial to the students, the staff, and the district. Rather than an email response, I would appreciate a response at the next convenient board meeting to Policy 1815, that directors are to be transparent, honest, and open, not secretive about their decisions and actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Molly. And thank you to all of our public comments tonight. We appreciate your interest, your participation, and your thoughts. This helps our board better understand our community's concerns. Next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. This consists of our personnel report, our payroll report, warrants, adjusted warrants, overnight field trip for the girls wrestling to Tacoma, overnight field trip for the boys wrestling to Tacoma, overnight field trip for DECA to Bellevue, overnight field trip for the Air Force ROTC to Port Angeles High School, and a declaration of surplus of driver's education cars. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Our consent agenda is now approved. Thank you. Next on our agenda, the first item of new business, our academic and student well-being update and opening schools for 2021-22. Dr. Sweeting, please share the latest information on the district operations and instruction during this pandemic. Thank you.
I'm just going to get my PowerPoint. Apologize, taking a minute to find it. I think you can see it now. Okay, so tonight for the academic and student well-being and keeping schools open update, I will be joined by Krista Kramer, our district nurse, by Nikki Anderson, assistant principal at Arlington High School, and Brian Long, director of college and career readiness. I just wanted to give a quick recap of the Dr. Spitter's meeting that we had on February 1st. This is a meeting that we've been having. It's been weekly, but now it's every other week with Dr. Spitters at Snohomish Health District and his team. At this meeting, he was talking about that from his perspective, that what we're watching for is the preservation of acute care capacity. And he just said to keep our guard up, but he also said that he was hopeful. He said there is possible waves or more waves possible. And he also talked about a sub-variant to the Omicron. I wanted to share that we are tonight, the next agenda item, there's a memo of understanding that we are considering approving, the board is going to consider. And this is an opportunity where students would be able to stay in school and staff stay in school if they're identified as a close contact. So the minute that they're identified as a close contact, they can test. And if they're negative and have no symptoms, then they would stay. And then again, before 5 days, there have to be a second test. So there are schools around us districts that are doing this, and it is some additional workload. And so we've been working on hiring an individual to help us with that, and also making sure we have tests available. But the main goal here is to keep students and staff in school. And to do this, we must have this MOU approved by our board, and then Dr. Spitters needs to sign it. And so the next agenda item will be the board considering that. So next, I'd like to invite Krista Kramer, district nurse, to give us a health update. She's coming on down.
Good evening, board. I'm Chris Kramer, district nurse. Next slide, please, Dr. Sweeting. Well, this is difficult to read from where I'm at looking at. I will say this is our 2-week rolling period of how many case counts in Snohomish County. We've been going over this at all the board meetings so far. They didn't update it today, I don't believe. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. The Snohomish County Health Department didn't update our numbers this afternoon as of 5 p.m. tonight when we were looking. So we're going off of numbers from last week, which is 1,662 per 100,000 in Snohomish County. Next slide, please. our district numbers, and I wanted to do a little update here. These are our numbers from, they're from last Friday that we pulled up. As of today, we have 16 positive cases in the school district that I'm aware of, and 26 close contacts. So that's great news. A huge drop from what we were seeing a few weeks ago. It's amazing. And then per school, this is also reflected in our school numbers as well. Numbers are dropping for positive and close contacts. And I'll give you a second just to be able to look at those numbers. And then if we go to the next slide, these are our numbers, which I find really interesting here from when we started keeping track of close contacts and positive cases. The beginning of October is when we really started watching this. And you can see the sharp incline that happened January for us. And then the decrease in numbers for both close contacts and positive cases in our district. It kind of mirrors the sharp upward spike and downward spike from Snohomish County. So we're seeing that same thing. Next slide, please. Excellent. Thank you,
Krista, very much. So the next portion of this is the academic and student well-being plan was a plan that we had to submit to the state that identified assessments, diagnostic assessments to identify what are the needs academically and social emotionally for our students. And then we had to identify maybe some groups of students there were some gaps, some significant gaps, and we had to identify the strategies and the interventions that we would put in place. So tonight I want to highlight two of the strategies and interventions. So I'm going to ask Nikki Anderson, assistant principal here at the high school, Arlington High School, to come, and she's going to share information about what's an intervention called Eagle Study.
Thank you, Chris. If you can advance to the next slide. So on this graph, you can kind of see over the last 6 weeks, we have had Eagle Study in our library. We have had one teacher been able to start putting this together for our students. As we began Eagle Study, we started to target kids that had 1 or more F within our building. The teacher who is putting this together, Marie, has pulled grades once a week and has targeted those students with Fs with calls home and emails. And you'll see as we get to the end of the semester, finals week, you'll see we had a drastic incline of students in attendance. She made a total of 152 contacts to freshman parents alone. These were students who were failing 1 or more classes and asked to come to Eagle Study or to get some kind of extra support in their classes. Where we decreased, that is the new semester, and now we have started to again see the incline. When we pulled grades at the end of 3rd quarter, we had 655 students failing 1 or more classes. By the end of 1st semester, after 6 weeks of having Eagle Study in session, we had 319 students with 1 or more failing grade. We have had 131 students in overall attendance, 60 of which are all different students. So we are making a difference, and I just ask that we can continue to push this for students and see that we are making progress with our students who are failing or struggling. On our next slide, as Chris turns this, you're going to see some feedback from parents, students, and teachers, all of which have great positive feedback of what we're doing. Students who might not want to come are seeing that there's help there. They're appreciative of the help that is there. Parents who are struggling to help students at home get back on track, especially after COVID, and trying to figure out the time. And then teachers really thanking Marie and staff who are helping up in the library every Friday to hold kids accountable and give them the help that's needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. This, just to clarify for the board, this Eagle Study period, it's on Fridays when school's dismissed. So it takes place after school on Fridays during that hour and a half, that early dismissal. So next I would like to invite Brian Long, Director of College and Career Readiness. He's going to share about an intervention or a support called Student Support Advocates.
Good evening. Our student support advocates have been in place now for 1 calendar year. They are embedded social workers in both of our high schools and both of the middle schools. And we've even started to move as kind of an experiment to see how well it works, even down into the grade school level. These folks are here to bridge that gap that we see happening in community resources and our students. So our highest risk students are identified by counselors, by attendance, by various data that we can mine out of Skyward, and by just teacher recommendations. Our 2 SSAs, Travis at Arlington and at Weston, and Rachel at Post and at Haller, as well as I think she started at Eagle Creek. I think that's where we started. They have been reaching out to students that they have identified themselves or have been identified by counselors or by teachers. And at this point, I know Travis has at least talked to 500 to 600 students. Almost every student at Weston, Travis has created some level of a relationship with, because Weston's just a generally high needs population. And Rachel is working really diligent to get those middle schoolers' attention. I don't know if you've ever had to get a middle schooler's attention. It's a challenge. So you're gonna go ahead and go forward. So what they do is they assess the needs of the student when they meet with them. And that could be as simple as just having a place to study, or as complex as I don't have a place to live. And it's everything in between. The number one goal of all of our interventionists and the Snohomish County project is actually to connect with mental health services. That is their absolute primary goal, but they know that no problem exists in a vacuum. And so they kind of try to do this wraparound approach. Go ahead. So their primary role is that case management and screening, really identifying those kids that are actually in need of their kinds of services. There are lots of kids in need, but they provide only the very tippy top of our RTI pyramid. So, and then planning with not only the student, but with the families themselves. Rachel at the middle schools and at the grade schools works with families much more closely than Travis. Travis typically works with just the student themselves. And then facilitating and keeping that communication going. And then lastly, that ongoing evaluation. We're not really at that point yet because the program is pretty new, but we've seen some pretty awesome impact in getting kids resources they need. I think that's it.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
I will share that we submitted an application with the Snohomish County to secure another student support advocate. And so we're hopeful that I'm hoping that will be approved. And what that means is instead of having one that is shared between Weston High School and Arlington High School, we'd have one full-time at Arlington High School and full-time at Weston. So we're hopeful for that. And with that, I'm to questions.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, Brian. My last visit to Weston, got the opportunity to interact with Travis, right? I think
He's pretty awesome, isn't he?
He was just great, and it was just a great program to see what he is doing with all the students there, and just thanks to him and everybody else, and you for having.
We
that
stole him
going.
from Everett. We're pretty lucky. He already knew how to do the job, so we were pretty pleased.
Hi, Brian. These interventions, are the parents involved?
Yes.
Are notified of interventions?
Yes, whenever possible and whenever it's necessary. We actually have this discussion quite frequently to make sure that when it is necessary, parents, or especially when mental health is involved, there's very complicated laws and regulations around it. We've read policy to both of them on multiple occasions, like this is what we do and this is what the law requires. So we make sure that those are done and followed pretty closely because we know it's a very sensitive subject.
Brian, how many children are you reaching? Do you know, like a ballpark figure?
So there's a whole system that we struggled to get into place because of technology. But if I were to just guess actual ongoing interaction for Travis, he has to be about 100, I'm guessing. And Rachel's a little bit lower. That's why we moved her into the grade schools, because she's not working as much as she even wants to. And I guess she's around 20 or 30. But if you were to just look at like individual incidences, Travis is probably in the thousands and Rachel's probably in the hundreds. So, but if they determine that a kid doesn't need much more intervention, they just back off or they redirect them to the right resources. Because they're, again, just the very tippy top most need, not just general need.
Question from all of us.
That's totally fine. That's why I'm here.
I'm just wondering if you can talk about what it looks like for students who are doing online learning.
So for online, these guys wouldn't serve them at all. So, but every student that's online is also assigned a high school counselor. It's not that they're just left to do their own thing. The alphas still apply at Weston. Katie takes care of all the online one. And then Kim Wilson does a lot of the work with our AOP and our still Squamish students.
Sherry, do you have any questions?
I don't. I just am really happy to hear this, and I do appreciate the advocacy for an additional person to serve in this role. I think you can never have enough help. So kudos to Arlington for having that foresight and making that happen. And again, Brian, I'm a big fan of yours, and I love that you share this news with us. It sounds like it's good stuff, and all in all, it's helping our students to be, as the comments were by other teachers, there's accountability. And I think the early release days, again, afford this opportunity for our students to get the help that they need.
Cool. I'm next, so I'm just going to stay here.
Do our student advisors have any questions?
You guys are good.
Next on our agenda is our memorandum of agreement with the Snohomish Health District. And we're going to talk about the test to stay program. That's going to be Dr. Sweeting again.
So this will be an action item that the board will consider. And Brenda, if you'll put up the MOU. So this is what the MOU looks like. It basically describes what the district would do and what Snohomish County would do. The supervisor or the coordinator, we have to identify someone for that. So identified Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations. He's been supportive in our COVID efforts when we've met on a weekly basis with the COVID team, but also he'll work very closely with Krista Kramer, our district nurse, so that there's coordination with our health staff. So for us as a district, the number 2, participation, this is what we would have to do. We have to make sure that the parents, that if they agree, they don't have to agree, they don't have to do the program. It just means that if they don't do the test to stay, they have to go along with the regular quarantine time that is in place right now, which is if you're a close contact, you go out of school for 5 days. So this allows someone that's identified as a close contact to stay in school as long as they test negative and they don't have any symptoms. So that's a good thing. And then let's see, they have to continue while we all at the moment are wearing masks. Let's see what else. It's a modified quarantine. So it says here that they will be able to, let's see, they have to continue to quarantine from like social gatherings. The family will be, that's your responsibility as a community and the family in that way. But as far as school activities, they will be able to participate in extracurricular activities at school, including sports, and they can attend childcare or youth development programs. The testing has to be performed at school. Like recently, we just said that families could use home tests, which is great, but for this particular program, they will not allow us to, well, we can use the home test, but they have to be done on our campus by our staff. So it's a little bit different there. And then we had identified that we were using the rapid antigen testing and that we would test twice in a 5-day period. We had to provide our certificate of waiver, license number, and just agree to follow the protocols. So what questions does the board have?
Hearing no questions, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the MOU?
I move we approve the MOU with Snohomish Health District.
I second.
It's been moved by Director Ray and seconded by Director Kelly to approve the memorandum of agreement for the Test to State program as presented. Clerk, we are ready to take the vote.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. The memorandum of agreement for the Test to State program is now approved. Thank you, Dr. Speeding.
Yes, and I just would like to say that it doesn't happen like tomorrow. What has to happen now is we take the MOU and send it back to the Snohomish Health District, and then they sign it, and then we have to make sure we put everything in place. So it'll take a little bit of time.
And can you also describe how many staff members we're going to need and when that's planning to be implemented?
Well, we had approved to hire 2 individuals at 7.5 hours. We did interviews on Friday, so we're trying to look at the design of how the program is best to be implemented. So I have yet to really confirm that with Brian Lewis and Carissa, but we'll get that in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is our 2022 and 2023 student enrollment preview. And this is going to be presented by Brian Lewis, Executive Director of Operations.
Good evening, directors. Debbie or Brenda, can you guys show the slide presentation, please?
Give us a moment, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah. So while we're waiting for the slides to come up, I just want to let you know that this is the first of 2 enrollment projection presentations that we'll be making for you. The next enrollment projection presentation will occur at the next board meeting on February 28th, and we're going to ask you to take action at that time, adopting the recommended enrollment projection. This is purely for a briefing purposes at this point. We've got a couple of new board members, and I'm going to go over the methodology and some definitions, and then talk about the enrollment projection for next year that we've got queued up right now. The numbers may change slightly between tonight and the February 28th meeting. We're always reviewing information prior to having you make a decision on the projected enrollment, because there are budget implications associated with this.
Do you want to keep introducing? I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty.
Sure. So I'll get started with some of the definitions. You've got a preview of the presentation attached to your board packet. If we could just go to slide 2, Debbie. So we're going to talk about some definitions, factors that influence enrollment, methodology for projecting enrollment, and the current projection for next year. The most important definition that you should be aware of in regards to enrollment projection is full-time equivalent. WAC 392, 121, 122 provides a definition of a full-time equivalent student. And that's each student who is enrolled on the count date, which is within the first 5 days of each month, for at least the minimum number of hours set forth in subsection 1, which is 27 hours and 45 minutes each school week, or 5 hours and 33 minutes for each scheduled school day. Now, aside from students as human beings, which they are primarily, that's our first consideration, is their own well-being as human beings. Their presence as an enrolled student drives state support to the school district. And that's why we do this enrollment projection, because that determines what revenues that will become available to us in the coming year to support the educational programs that we offer to students. So when the state looks at our enrollment, they look at it in 2 ways. The one that is most influential in terms of driving enrollment is the full-time equivalent. and even further delineated in that they look at the annual average full-time enrollment from September of each school year to June of each school year. And our final reimbursement from the state is based on the average of each one of those months across the school year. So you'll hear us refer to FTEs or annual average FTEs, full-time equivalents, when we talk about enrollments or the presence of students within a program. The other measurement that we look at is head count, and a head count is a whole person. We don't fraction a person in terms of head count, and this is used primarily to talk about presence of students within a school building itself. And usually there's a one-to-one relationship between head count and FTE. When you start getting into secondary programs, even the middle school programs, but primarily high school programs, is when we encounter parts of FTE or fractions of an FTE, because some students are enrolled in programs that occur off campus or are not part of our school district. The biggest example being the skill center. So if a student is enrolled half the day at Arlington High School or Weston High School and half the day at the skill center, then for purposes of calculating FTE, they only count for a 0.5 for that purpose for us. They count for a 0.5 for the skill center, the count that they take. And as a head count, for us, they count as a 1. And for the skill center, they count as a 1 because we can't divide a person's presence in terms of head count. It only applies to FTE calculations. So the numbers from here on out tonight, we're going to be talking about FTE or annual average FTE and not head count. So there are multiple factors that influence enrollment. I'm just going to go through a list of some of these items. Births within a county or a school district, because there's a relationship between the number of births that occur, and it doesn't necessarily mean a person is born within the zip code of Arlington 98223, but they're born to parents who live within the zip code of 98223. They could be born at Providence Hospital, but if they're Arlington parents, and that counts within the boundaries of our school district. And generally those children that are born show up in a public school setting 5 years later as a kindergartner. So we can use that number to estimate how many kindergartners are going to show up. That's really the biggest variable that we deal with in terms of enrollment estimate in a regular year. I'm not talking about a COVID year, but in a regular year is the birth rate within the district and its influence on our kindergarten enrollment 5 years later. So we track the live births within the district. Transitions or grade progression. So as an example, some families don't enroll their students in a school, in a public school, until a certain point in time. Like they might not go to kindergarten, or they might go to a private kindergarten, and then they'll come to public school for first grade. Same thing, condition applies between 8th grade and 9th grade as well, whereas many private schools their programs stop at the end of 8th grade, so that student would enroll in a public school for their high school career with us. There's also situations where families who are homeschooling decide to enroll their student in a public school, in high school, for a specific purpose, for a specific class like science or wood shop or metal, something that it's more difficult for them to do in a homeschool setting. So that's where the FTE comes into play. If a student enrolls for one period a day, that counts as a 0.2 of an FTE. So this is where you'll see some differences between head count and FTE. And that transition sometimes that occurs between 8th grade and 9th grade and between kindergarten and 1st grade in particular. You have more kids in 1st grade and more kids in 9th grade than you had in kindergarten or 8th grade the year before. Construction. Construction has a huge impact on the number of students that we should expect to see enrolling in our schools. One of the items that I'm going to be bringing to you later this year is an update to our capital facilities plan, which is a document that's required by state law if we were to request Snohomish County and City of Arlington authorize us to collect mitigation fees or impact fees based on new residences being built within the boundaries of our school district. So it was part of that application. We do a study, and what that study is that we look at residential housing and classify it by single family housing or multifamily housing. Once we get into multifamily housing, then we look at studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom and up apartments or townhomes, because we know that each one of those types of residential housing arrangements ends up sending a certain number of students to our schools based on the mathematical relationship between the number of housing units we have and the number of school or students we have enrolled in the school. Single family homes tend to generate more students for the school district, and multifamily homes tend to produce fewer. When we look at multifamily homes in the region or within our boundaries, we don't look at studios and 1 bedrooms. We only look at 2 bedroom and up because the amount of students that live in studio or 1 bedrooms are small in comparison to the 2 bedrooms and up. So as these apartment complexes or single family homes or townhomes are being built, then we can project how many students we should expect to see in our schools from the presence of those new structures. Mobility. Mobility has a huge influence on enrollment as well. And we've seen that most pronounced during COVID. When we started our school year 2021, the difference between the number of students that we started with in 2019 had dropped by almost 400. And a lot of those families left the region. They left Washington State or they left Arlington Public Schools for a wide range of reasons. But that's the kind of impact mobility can have on a school district. We also see influence from mobility is from military personnel being stationed in Everett or Oak Harbor. As troop deployments change, we see students from those military families that live within our school district, and one of their parental folks work as a military personnel at one of these bases that are close by to us. So that can change pretty quickly and change a lot very quickly. And then the last item that's become much more evident to us is the effect of pandemic on our enrollment. Again, we were on a trajectory to meet 6,000 students or to have 6,000 students close to 2025. And because of the pandemic, that's substantially changed. We're still going to grow, just not going to grow as quickly as we thought we were prior to pandemic. So Debbie, are you able to show the slide that's got the line graph on it? There you go. So I'm going to talk about births here for just a moment. This is a line graph showing births to parents who live within the 98223 zip code from 2002 to 2018. And we know when we look back at time and how many of those students showed up in our kindergarten 5 years after they were born, it's about an 84% relationship. So the year that we're looking at right now is 2000, the birth year is 2017. There was 470 students born to parents that live within the zip code at that time. And we, by applying 84% to that, we expect 391 kindergartners to enroll. So when we look at the projection, the enrollment projection in just a few minutes, you'll see that pretty constant across all the different projections is 391 students in kindergarten. So I've already covered the transitions. If you could go to the methodology slide. It should have been like 3 slides in, or 2 slides after the line graph. There you go. Thank you. Okay, so there's 3 primary methods that we use to project enrollment. First one is April roll-up. This is the simplest method. And this is basically anticipating how many students we're going to have in each grade in April of this year, and assuming that they're going to be with us next year in September. It's pretty easy to do, but it's not necessarily the most accurate. And because a couple of things, it doesn't take into consideration the transitions between kindergarten and first grade, or between 8th grade and 9th grade. That's one of the bigger reasons. It also doesn't take into consideration the way enrollment changes across a school year. As a rule, we can count on, and that's again, not in a pandemic year, but kindergarten through 5th grade remains fairly stable or grows somewhat from October as we move forward. Middle school, 6, 7, and 8, grades 6, 7, and 8, it remains flat. It does not generally change. High school, between 9th and 12th grade, peaks in October and generally declines throughout the year. And you can see that decline most pronounced in 11th and 12th grade. Students get to a point where they think that they're not going to be able to succeed, and they leave us. They drop out. And that usually happens around January of each school year. This is not something we want to have happen, but it does. That's the reality, is it does happen. So all that's accounted for in the second methodology, the weighted historical average. This is the methodology that we tend to use the most here for enrollment projection, because it takes all those factors into consideration. The third method is the OSPI cohort survival. And this is the method that OSPI looks to for determining our eligibility for state matching funds in terms of facilities. But I try not to rely on this method because it's the most sensitive to changes in enrollment. And we're gonna look at the enrollment for all 3 of these methods in just a moment. But what you'll see for the OSPI cohort survival method in the next year does not reflect what happens. I'll provide the OSPI cohort survival method in your package for the next board meeting. And you'll see that if we relied on that to project our enrollment on that method, that we would anticipate a pretty precipitous decline in enrollment in the next 5 years. I don't think that's going to happen. The demographic work that we're doing right now with flow analytics does not anticipate that either. And all the construction that we're seeing around us in terms of residential housing does not tend to indicate that we would see a precipitous decline in enrollment. But it's a good point of reference for us, helps us understand if we're on the right track with our weighted historical average. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show you another chart, and the chart is really meant to represent 2 factors: volatility, which is a tendency to change quickly and unpredictably, and conservative the conservativeness, and this is not meant to be a political statement. It's really a description of caution to avoid excess in approximating the quantity. We don't want to go without prior knowledge. We don't want to swing wide, either up or down for our enrollment estimate, because it does have an effect on the budget that we create following in March. Next slide, please. So you can see there's a visual representation. Kyle, help me out. Is the x-axis vertical? What's that?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. Okay, so the y-axis is vertical. Okay, thank you. So the y-axis on this chart graph represents volatility, and the x-axis represents conservative nature of the estimate. The further to the right you get on the x-axis, the more conservative the estimate is, the less likely it takes into account volatility as you go up. So the higher you go up on the y-axis, the more volatility is considered. And again, the cohort survival is most heavily weighted on volatility, and the April roll-up is most heavily weighted on conservatism in terms of enrollment estimate. So the weighted historical average is right in between those two. It does account for volatility, but it also takes into, it is conservative as well, and it looks to prior years to gather information to inform the estimate moving forward. So for me, it's the Goldilocks estimates, just right. So the final two slides are numbers. The first one shows the estimate by the different enrollment, methodologies compared to our 21-22 budget. I want to spend a few moments talking about this. There's a column that's far left column is grade level, condensed grade level by elementary, middle, or high school. And then there's open doors and ALE listed there as well. That's SVLC and AOP, or ALE programs. The second column is labeled 21-22 budget. That's the enrollment estimate that we used to project enrollment for this year. The third set of columns is 21-22 projected annual average FTE. So this is what we expect to have for actual annual average FTE in this current school year. And then there's a comparison between budget and projected for annual average FTE. And you can see we're up by about 128 students. And then the next three columns are the same comparison between budget and April enroll, or either the April roll up for 22-23, the weighted historical average for 22-23, or the OSPI cohort survival for 22-23, and the difference between those numbers and the 21-22 budget. And the reason why I've included that comparison for each one of them is that, again, it helps us understand what kind of effect we should expect on our budgeting process based on the changes between the years. So on the low end of the scale, the April roll-up, we can anticipate right now 156 additional students for next year. And you can see by grade level, by grade band, where we would expect to see that growth occur. On the medium end of the scale, we would expect an additional 255 students for next year. And then on the high end of the scale, the OSPI cohort survival, we would anticipate 330 additional students. So the next slide shows that breakdown by grade, not by grade band. So it basically expands the first slide. It's a more detail by grade level. And this helps us understand where we should place staffing in our school buildings by grade level. So next month, or next meeting, not next month, we're going to see a lot of the same information again, unless something changes for our enrollment projection for next year. It should closely mirror this. It might change, but I can't tell you what the factors would be to influence that at this moment. Somebody may come forward with information for us that could be influential on the changes. So a recommendation will be provided at that time as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about this presentation.
Brian, last year, Mike had a really good suggestion that, I don't know if you remember, but it was really helpful for me, is when we compared the previous couple of years, what we had budgeted and what our actuals were. That would be helpful to see that again, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Brian Lewis?
I would only caution that I'll present the 1920 and the 2021 data, but it's going to be, I consider those 2 years to be outliers and not necessarily something that I would base projections on for the future, because it was so different and not, following regular enrollment patterns. But I'll present it to you, but I'll provide that caveat at the same time.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, Brian, one quick question, just to confirm my memory, is that we've been close to that weighted average for at least my tenure on the school board?
Yes, prior to COVID, we've been within 2% using the weighted historical average.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Plus or minus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian, for your very thorough report. We appreciate it. The next thing on the agenda is our other Brian, Brian Long, our Director of College and Career Readiness, is going to introduce the new high school course, Criminal Justice 1. Please.
Let me get things going.
Tonight we have Brian and Brian multiple times. We're
Yeah,
very excited.
I think I'm the next 6 things, so I'll go quick. Just not right now, evidently. Here we go. All right. Nice to be able to tell you're doing it right. It's right there. All righty. So I got quite a few of these to go through. Got one slide for each, and then we'll vote. I guess you'll vote. I won't. So our first one is Criminal Justice 1. And this is a brand new course. It's never existed here. Some of these will be updates and some of these will be brand new. So here we go. Criminal justice. So in the world of career and technical education, I have to balance a lot of different things, and everything that I do has to be approved by the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, as well as you guys, as well as the advisory board, as well as building leadership teams. So to do all that, it takes a monumental amount of paperwork, and I've got it down to like 5 slides here. So criminal justice is our SIP code 430100, which allows us to define who can teach it and what that content is. It's an exploratory course, meaning it's meant to prep students for the next course in high school. So it's really, really meant for our freshmen and our sophomores. Anyone is able to take this class, but it's really, really targeted for that grade level, because the idea is you take another course. It falls under law, public safety, corrections, and security. This is a 180-hour course, which is a normal year. We have 180 days. Each day counts for an hour, 180. That will be very poignant later. But we did this framework in January, and its career pathway is emergency fire management and services. All of this managed to OSPI, not to many other people. So here's our general description for this class. This is really meant to be an introduction to a very large breadth of classes. Though this one focuses primarily on policing and police procedures, it's really, in most cases, the first step that anyone takes when they enter into the world of legality. Whether it's good or bad, it's where you start and it's the basis. And so that's how we're kind of starting this entire pathway. It isn't how it ends, however. So, but this course is specifically targeted towards teaching students the basics of the legal system, which is the policing laws and procedures, with the intent that they not only be able to become police officers, but anything within that emergency and service field, which I'll go over in a bit. So the pathway, because these are really important to us in CTE, we want all of our students to take 2 CTE courses, totaling a total of 2 credits. The first course would be this criminal justice course, and at a later time, I'll be back here to discuss either or both criminal justice 2 with a law focus. That would be judges and lawyers and prosecutors, all that fun stuff. And then another route that we were thinking would be interesting is a criminal justice forensics focus. So it's more of a science and the criminal investigation side of things. But we'll see what the students are interested in, as well as what the career demand is, and go with that direction. And these are the different careers that this pathway is intended to lead towards. So anyone from being a judge to a park ranger who knew they were in the same career field, but they are, because it's all about following rules that we create as a society. So I think that's all I have for this one. Yep. So that's all I have for this motion. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. That's what I like.
If there's
No questions.
question, this is an action item. We have a motion to approve the Criminal Justice 1 new high school course.
I move we approve criminal justice 1.
I'll second. Madam Clerk, it's been moved and seconded. Can you please call for a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. Our new high school course, Criminal Justice 1, is approved. And Brian, next on our agenda is coincidentally our new instructional materials for Criminal Justice 1.
So we got to teach something in this class, right? So the framework actually defines most of what we teach, and that was attached to the actual motion you guys just made. So that really defines for the teacher and OSPI really specifically what we're going to teach on a day-to-day basis. However, to support that, we need to adopt a curriculum. So this is truly a textbook, and all of the worksheets and all the teacher activity, everything that goes with it. So we chose, because quite frankly, it's almost the only one I could find that is actually developmentally appropriate for high school kids. We could get them for college kids until the end of time, but we wanted to keep that Lexile right around an 1100, which is that 10th, 11th grade level. And this was one of only 2 I could even find, and the other one didn't cover the topics that we're covering in the class. So we went with this one. It wasn't a hard choice. It is a very big book, and the intent is that we would only teach the first 7 chapters in this course, with the other chapters being used for other courses. I think this is a 560-page book, so no way you're getting through that in 1 year. So just these first ones, we get through most of our framework. There would be some supplemental activities that we would have to do to really hit all of them, but that's pretty typical in a CTE course, because the frameworks don't necessarily line up perfectly with books, but this is the best one we could find. And this is how much it costs, because books aren't cheap. So we're getting 30 actual textbooks, physical textbooks, which also come with a digital license as well. And then we're getting 30 additional digital licenses. So all students would have a digital license on their Chromebook, but we'd also have physical books in case things don't go right, or it's just better to read out of a book. Plus those digital licenses come with all the teacher worksheets and activities and all that fun stuff. So in the end, it's just under $9,000, and it will be paid for entirely out of CTE. So that's all, unless you have questions.
Any questions for Brian Long?
Brian, I have a quick question. Just curious, I don't know, I know the courses available at Weston are much fewer, But I'm wondering if you have a student at Weston that sees this available at the high school, how do we address that? Are they able to take this course? How does that look?
So we have very few students who come from Weston to Arlington. It's actually more likely that it would happen the other direction. There is no reason that I wouldn't happily put, because this teacher, well, now I'm hiring a teacher. So I'm gonna have to hire a teacher for 2 periods at Arlington High School. There is no reason that I wouldn't hire them for another period to go down to Weston if we had even a handful. I never expect the Weston class to be full. It's just a smaller school, and that's totally fine. If they got 5, 6, 10 would be nice. Kids that they want to take the class, we're happy to pay for a teacher to go down there and cover those classes. And then they'd be much more likely to take it. Very few Weston kids feel overly eager to come to the high school to take a class. So
Yes, good point. Thank you. Somehow my mind was not open enough to think about the teacher being the mobile one. So thank you. That
yeah, I
explains it
have
much
one
more.
teacher that goes back and forth already, so it wouldn't be unusual at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any board members? Okay, this is another action item. Do we have a motion to approve the new materials for the new course, Criminal Justice 1?
I make a motion that we approve the new instructional materials for criminal justice 1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the instructional materials for Criminal Justice 1. Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is our new high school course, Metal Manufacturing 2 Field Technician. And Brian, it's you again.
I'm back again. So field technician, now we're going to switch gears big time. So we have in our field tech, or in our metal manufacturing, we have metal manufacturing 1. So before we were talking about a first year class really targeted towards freshmen and sophomores. This is the exact opposite. These are our second year kids in metal manufacturing. And we currently have metal manufacturing 2 fabrication, which is really designed at making a product, a final product. These students would go in and be employed to make a specific item or whatever it is to very detailed patterns. This is a totally different direction. This is teaching those students how to fix the machines that make those, or to fix any machine, quite frankly, because it turns out there are a lot of machines that run a lot of things. And the one that I like to point out the most is, you ever been in a hospital? There's a lot of machines in hospitals, like a whole lot of them, and they all have to work perfectly every single time. This class actually leads to that kind of a degree. And that's what field technician is all about, is making machines work so other people can do their jobs. So this one is got a big long name, Metal Manufacturing 2 Field Technician. The reason for the title is so that students know when they look at the course catalog that this is the second class, not the first class, and they should have taken the first one. We kind of want to really encourage them to follow those pathways. It's got that zip code 470495. This is preparatory, which changes it. It is meant to prepare a kid to enter the world of work or to enter the next step in education outside of secondary school. We're going into Everett Community College, Edmonds, or they're going directly into an apprenticeship. They're really preparing them to do something now. It's manufacturing, it's 180 hours, so it's a year long, and it's maintenance, installation, and repair. I don't like the title. So our goal here is we're going to shift this sequence. Instead of them really building their own machines or building a specific part, now we're going to show them how the machines work and how they work autonomously and how you can support that as a employee. You're really going to focus a great deal where it's not in here, because that doesn't sell classes. It's safety. Safety is huge in this class, because most technicians actually work under safety, because the whole point is to keep the machine safe and running accurately. What we're going to focus on is field welding, field fabrication. Small gas engines is coming back. big time because it turns out there's a couple billion of those in the United States and they all still need to run. And basic machining as well, because we figure the kids need to know how the machines work to be able to fix them properly and to be able to adjust them to the 0.001 kind of level of accuracy that we're looking for. Because again, this is a preparation course to actually start working, not just to learn to do the next step. And you can see the pathway for this one, starting with metal manufacturing 1, and then they can either go into the fabrication class, which we already have, or they can go into this class, field tech. And I think that's it for this one. Oh, no. Production, manufacturing, maintenance, installation, all those fun jobs that pay really, really well, and we have a very difficult time finding people to do them. So that's it.
Any questions from board members or student advisors that might be interested in something like this? All right, we're ready to take a motion to approve this new course, Metal Manufacturing 2 Field Technician.
I move we approve metal manufacturing field technician.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Metal Manufacturing 2 Field Technician High School course. Can we please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Congratulations again, Brian.
Well, look, I had more jobs.
Next, it's going to be Brian Long to tell us about a CTE course revision for child development. Brian.
How you tell, I teach a lot of different subjects underneath mine. So now we're going to talk about kids development here. So child development is a course revision. We already have this course. And so we're just going to modify this one. So specifically, we're taking child psychology and we're going to call it child development. And I'm going to explain why. We're going to go from 90 hours, so a semester long course, to 180 hours to a year long course. And I'm going to explain why that one's that way too. Update the framework because a 90-hour framework doesn't last 180 days, it turns out. And so we had to grow it. And then updating the curriculum, which is going to come soon. Once we figure out, because McGraw-Hill won't let us buy for who knows why, their newest child development curriculum. I have no idea why they're dragging their feet on it. But eventually I'm going to get it and I'll bring it to you guys. So I guess they just don't want our money. So this is now going to be called child development. Same zip code. It's exploratory. It's really meant for 9th and 10th grade. It's preparing them for the next step, which I'll get to. It's human services. It's 180 hours, so it's 1 year long. We did it this year, the whole framework, and it's early childhood development and services, which is really important because it's going to make a big deal with what we do next. So this course is 9 through 12, but it's really targeted at 9 and 10. And in our current child psychology class, we actually cover these exact same topics. The difference is the child psychology just focuses on the psychology. So why it is that we behave the way we behave from birth until adolescence. With child development, we're literally adding in the development plus the psychology. So now we're going through the process of helping students to develop the most rounded and well-behaved kids that we can. We call that teaching. It's kind of cool. So it starts with child development. It moves into careers and education, which we'll cover here in a second, and careers and education practicum. So the whole point is to help students learn the foundational psychology and development necessary to be successful in a career in education. And our careers, big surprise, are to be a superintendent. That's it. Right, Chris? That's all it is. But it's basically all the things that we do at this school. And right now, we have a position for almost every single one of these open. We are in very large need for lots and lots of different areas of education in terms of employment. So I think that's it for that one.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Would this be a CTE credit, elective credit, or would it be a college in the high school option?
Yes.
All three?
Yep.
Awesome.
That's the way we do things. So it would count definitely for a CTE. It would definitely count for college and the high school. Once we get it articulated, we have to get it in place, have everything going, have the teacher in place, and then we can do that part. And then all classes count as elective. So, yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian? I'll entertain a motion to approve the CTE course revision, child development.
I make a motion, we approve the CTE course revision for child development.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the course revision, child development. Madam Clerk, can you please take a vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp,
Aye. Looks like you have another win, Brian. You're on a roll. Next thing is our CT course revision, careers in education.
Alrighty, so we already have a careers in education course as well, but we're just going to modify it just like we did the last one and updating that content. So this one isn't nearly as monumental in terms of changing like child psychology was. This one is already 180. It already teaches it. Really, all we're doing is updating the content. So this is preparatory. It's really targeted. In fact, only 11th and 12th graders can take this one. It's intended that they've already taken child psychology. It is not required, however, because we do want students to just enter it if they feel that they're ready for it. Education and training. Now you'll note this one's super weird. 270. What? I'll explain. So January 2022 is when we wrote the framework, and it's teacher in training. So the first course, the first 1 credit course is the 180 hours, and it is only for 11th and 12th grade because it is meant to be preparatory. In this case, obviously, they're not going to go from here and directly into the world of work. The point is to prepare them to go to college because almost all educational field requires another level of education. So this one is, and I want to spend more time on this one because I kind of really like this one, but the general idea is we teach them how to be teachers. And really important is, if you look at the bottom one, it's engaging in the reflective practice. So we want them to really start thinking about how they're teaching and what they're doing. And how it impacts kids. So we start that professional practice that as teachers we do now, and we're really trying to reinforce as much as possible so that we learn to practice teaching, not just teach. And so we start that immediately. And this program and the curriculum I'm going to discuss here in a bit really reinforces that. Oops. So again, we're now on the second one. So child development and then careers in ed, that's where this one sits. And there's going to be another one. So something that's unique with career and technical ed is we can create classes that are more than 1 year, and this is 1.5 years. They can either take their practicum, which is literally observing a teacher, for 1/2 year, 90 hours. That's how you get to 270. And they can do that concurrently, or they can do it the following year, depending on where they at in their academic and whether their schedule can handle it. So it's not required, but we highly encourage it. And it would be the second semester if they do it concurrently. So they have some information under their belt before they start doing it, or the following year. In either way, Ann Heyman is the teacher we're looking at putting this. She'll take care of the secondary kids, and Tina Nielsen, who is the child development teacher, she'll take care of the younger, the students who are more interested in younger kids, because she happens to be a grade school teacher at one time for right here in Arlington. So it works out really well, and they're all totally on board to do this. And so then you get your whole pathway of child development, careers in ed, and then careers in ed practicum. And same thing, all the different areas of education that are available. This would also include preschool teachers that, or even daycare providers. All of these are education. They're just younger kids. So it all falls under that same umbrella. And that's it for this one.
Any questions about this one?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
When the students are observing, would it be at the high school or at the elementary school? Is that what you were explaining a little bit?
Yep. Whichever one is their ultimate goal. If they're more interested in being a grade school, we are going to have them work with Tina Nielsen to start that partnership. And if they're more focused on the high school level, we even have President Elementary's preschool that we can actually have them work with as well. So it's really where they want to end up. We'll go ahead and try to figure out a way to get them involved.
And would that be during the time of the school day or
Yep.
extra?
It's just like being a TA.
Okay.
Yep, and it would most likely be first period or sixth period. So this way they can go there and start. and then, or leave and go there, whichever one. Right in the middle would be real tough, so we're probably not gonna do it that way.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions? All right, we're ready for a vote on, we're ready for a motion, so we can vote on this one.
I can move we approve the new instructional materials, careers in education.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the course revision for careers in education. Clerk, can we have a vote on that?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. All right, thank you. Looks like our course revision for careers in education is approved. Next item of business is our new instructional materials for our careers in education. Brian.
Alrighty, so this one's a little bit different than the normal curriculum where we buy a book. So this is completely an online curriculum, and there's no way you can see that. I don't even know if you guys can see it on your screens, but this is the full curriculum broken down. And it really talks first about how the student is as a person. So becoming more self-aware as an individual, because teaching isn't, turns out it's really complicated. So we need to know where you sit as a human. And then it's going to go into understanding your students and how the two interact, and then adding your classroom. Most people think that teaching is just about controlling your classroom and making your classroom work. That is obviously super important. But if you don't know where you're coming from or where your students are coming from, that's not going to matter. So then we teach them how to interact with their classroom, and then how the community impacts the overall educational system and how important that is. And then your profession as a teacher and how you continue to make it a practice of improving yourself as a teacher, not just a one-off. I taught that lesson on photosynthesis, you better get it. Doesn't work that way. Turns out you got to work with them. And then this one's going to cost us $6,000 a year because it's buying an online program that provides the teacher with 60 plus lessons that follow that framework that I just showed you, as well as allows the kids to actually participate in a CTSO, a career and technical education student organization that really centers around teaching and teaching practices. So it's a whole program. And then we'll see after 3 years whether we think it's all good or if we're going to go a different direction. But again, the framework drives what we do and how we teach in our class. The curriculums are there to support and augment that framework, but the framework is the most important thing. So that's it.
Any questions for Brian? Do I have a motion to approve the curriculum for careers in education?
I make a motion that we approve the new instructional materials for careers in education.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the new instructional materials for careers in education. Can we have a vote, please?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. And that motion passes, and our curriculum for careers in education is approved. Thank you, Brian.
That's it.
Next up on the agenda is Brian Lewis for our contract for Eagle Creek Elementary flooring replacement. It's the Brian and Brian show tonight.
Oops. I have to go through every tab to find the right page. Sorry. Okay. Good evening again. In February 2020, voters within the boundaries of Arlington Public Schools approved a capital projects levy. One of the projects funded by the levy is the replacement of flooring at Eagle Creek Elementary School. The contract presented for board consideration tonight provides for the replacement of carpeting and resilient flooring in all classrooms, the multi-purpose room, and other common areas inside the building at Eagle Creek Elementary. The current flooring was installed during the original building construction in 1989, so it's seen its fair share of students. Following the completion of design work, district staff requested proposals from the Charles Beresford Company through its contract with the King County Directors Association. You're going to hear that name again tonight too. KCDA conducts competitive bidding processes for a wide range of purchases school districts may make, such as floor coverings. The completion of the contracted services will require the coordination of removal and replacement of furnishings from all interior spaces of the school building and ongoing administration of the project by the district's capital projects team, which includes myself, Fred Owen, our project manager, and McGranahan Architects. Work will begin in late June 2022 and be substantially complete by August 19th, 2022, in time for teachers to return to their classrooms. The contract amount is $448,325.44. Sufficient funding is available in the district's capital projects fund to cover the cost of this contract. You may notice a trend in the past couple of board meetings that we're bringing proposals for summer work to you earlier than we did last year. And that's to help us overcome supply chain difficulties. And this is one of those situations where Beresford has asked us to make a decision as soon as we possibly can so that we can reserve material and get crews lined up for installation of the material within the very tight time frame that we have across the summer months. So on the screen right now, this is just a three-way contract between KCDA, Charles Beresford, and Arlington Public Schools. It is missing some information in it that's waiting for board approval. We'll fill in those gaps. It's really just dates and times more than anything else. The contract amount is stated here under Article 3 contract sum. Oh yeah, this will also include replacing the flooring in 2 portable classrooms at Eagle Creek Elementary. And those classrooms we don't want to overlook those classrooms merely because they're portables and they're outside of the building. We already have replaced the flooring in the office spaces at Eagle Creek. That was done in conjunction with the installation of the secured entryway last summer. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Brian Lewis about the flooring at Eagle Creek? This is another action item. Do we have a motion to approve the contract for Eagle Creek Elementary flooring replacement?
I move that we approve the contract for Eagle Creek flooring replacement.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for Eagle Creek Elementary flooring replacement. Any discussion? We can move to the vote, Madam Clerk.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. The flooring is approved for the contract.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is Brian Lewis again with our Arlington High School track resurfacing proposal. Brian, please share information about the Arlington High School track resurfacing proposal, alternate bid number 4.
Sure. In February 2020, again, the voters approved the capital levy to add classrooms and a scene shop to Arlington High School, improve safety, security, and energy efficiency at school buildings across the district, and extend the useful life of existing school facilities. At the Arlington High School Stadium, the current running track surface was installed in 2003, and at 18 years of life has far outlived its manufacturer's expected lifespan of 10 years due to careful use by the athletic department and good maintenance practices. The track surface is comprised of 2 layers of latex, and these layers are delaminating. Small breaks in the surface have allowed water to seep between the layers, freeze and expand and contract the layers of the surface itself. If you go out there after a rainstorm, you can see it. There's bubbles all across the surface of the track. And then when the water dries, what had been expanded contracts into a depression. So this is dangerous for users. Areas of the track that require repairs are such that replacement of the track is recommended. The track is a vital component of physical education programs, athletic programs, and stadium-based events. In June 2021, the district's Facilities Advisory Committee recommended the replacement of the track surface at the Arlington High School Stadium and that the project be added to the list of capital levy funded projects. In July 2021, the district's board of directors authorized adding the resurfacing of the Arlington High School track to the list of projects funded by the capital levy. The district staff engaged with DA Hogan, a design firm in Washington that specializes in sports services like tracks and fields. Following the completion of design work, district staff requested proposals from Bain Sports through its contract with KCDA, which conducts competitive bidding processes for school districts that are members of KCDA. Following a review of the range of base and alternate bids, district staff made a recommendation to the superintendent to accept alternate bid 4. Alternate bid 4 provides the highest quality surface with the longest expected lifespan at the lowest cost of all base and alternate bids considered. So that's a pretty carefully constructed sentence, because some of the bids that were provided were lower in cost, but they didn't provide the same quality of surface. So it has a shorter lifespan. So the cost difference between the BS 200 product, which is the lower quality product, and the BS 300 product, which is the higher quality product, is about $68,000 for alternate bid 4. The other alternate bids that we received included coloring. And one of the situations was that the entire surface would be a color called oxide red. We rejected that because it tends to fade very quickly. And the other option that we considered were gold exchange zones. An exchange zone there's 2 locations in the surface of the track where if a relay race was being conducted, where it would be legal for runners to hand off the baton within that exchange zone. We rejected that as well, in lieu of providing the highest quality surface at the lowest price. So again, what you're seeing here is the different proposals that we received. We made this alternate bid 4 in the last minute before the vendors submitted their proposal to us, asked them to provide us the alternate bid 4 with the higher quality track surface with no color on it. So again, this is time sensitive. If we put our place in line now, we'll be more likely to be able to finish this project before school starts at the end of August. So we're asking for your approval to proceed with alternate bid 4.
Any questions from the board members?
Yeah, Brian, the color enhancement stuff you're talking about, could you expand a little bit more on that? Is that something that would make the track more user-friendly in any way?
It's visual and purely visual in nature. And the biggest cost for color was the red oxide. And in speaking with our consultant, DA Hogan, about this, and with the vendor, Bain, they both acknowledged that the color fades very quickly because it's so bright and sharp when you receive it. And we didn't see the value in providing this color. And we've been doing just fine without the exchange zones colored as well. It's really more for an appearance than anything else. Doesn't really add value to the project.
Great, thanks.
I had a question about financing. I don't know how this works, but do you put a deposit down and then you pay off the sum when they're done with the work? What does that look like?
So Sherry, great question. We're barred from prepayment on any kind of contract. We can only make a payment when the service or product is delivered. So we would make a progress payment on these services as they're provided throughout the life of the construction project, which should be fairly brief. They're not going to start, they'll be on site at the end of May, but they really won't start any demolition until the beginning of June when the track is not in use any longer. And when at that point, then we begin accruing liability for making the payment when they start doing work. So we wouldn't make any kind of payment at all. Our contract, our signature on the contract and our purchase order to KCDA is enough for Banon to reserve the product for us and to get the crew lined up for installation.
And another question about money. I know that something I was a part of a while back with the band uniforms and stuff. Is there money that's set aside for umpteen years out? Like you said, this surprisingly lasted 18 years, but that wasn't the expectation initially. Is there money that's set aside that in 10 years or 15 years that there's money then that you have access to redo the track, or what does that look like?
So right now, what we do set aside money for is maintenance on an annual basis, and that comes out of the general fund, not out of the capital projects fund. We have not, as a practice, held aside money for replacement of a track at a future point in time.
Thank you.
Any additional questions about the track? This is another action item. Do we have a motion to approve the Arlington High School track resurfacing proposal, our alternate bid 4?
I move that we approve the Arlington High School track resurfacing proposal. I don't remember something number 4, alternate proposal number 4, alternate bid. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Arlington High School track resurfacing proposal alternate bid 4. Can we have a vote, please?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye. Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Next item on our agenda will be presented by Carrie Henderson Burke, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. This is the first reading of Board Policy 3220, Freedom of Expression.
Thank you, President Levesque. Policy 3220, as President Levesque has already referenced, is about student freedom of expression. We have some language updates in the policy, specifically connected to student publications, and changing the current language, which is cause a substantial disruption, to inciting students to create a clear and present danger to the material, and substantial disruption of school. So extending a little bit what our previous language said to actually causing other people to cause a disruption with that word incite. And then again, down below, a couple of bullet points later, it uses the word incite once again.
Any discussion or proposed amendments to policy 3220, freedom of expression?
None? All right.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you so much.
Next item on our agenda is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 6970, naming facilities. This will be presented by Brian Lewis, our Executive Director of Operations. Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you. So this is the second reading of Policy 6970 that was changed as a result of legislative action in the 2021 session. And the primary change is the language that was added. It was that school and team mascots and logos or images will not be of Native American names, symbols, or images unless the local tribe has approved the use by appropriate enactment or resolution. This does not have an effect on any of the teams or school mascots that we have or logos within our district. We don't have any of those that meet the criteria, but we're still bringing forward the policy to you for your consideration and approval.
Is there any discussion or amendment? Do I have a motion to approve Board Policy 6970, name facilities? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Board Policy 6970, naming of facilities. Madam Clerk, can we please have a vote on this?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Policies now approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the rest of our new business. Next up, we have our informational items. First up, we'll have our superintendent's report. Dr. Sweeting.
I just wanted to share that recently, last week, in fact, I did a tour of the construction work that's taking place here at Arlington High School, and I'm excited for the projects to be finished in July. What the projects include is behind the stage here, there'll be a scene shop so that the students don't have to create the stage, the scene props and things that they have for the performances and bring them all the way down the back road and bring them here. So it'll be awesome for them to have that. It also includes the addition of 8 classrooms, and in those classrooms, it is going to be state-of-the-art classrooms for our life skills students, and also there'll be a classroom for robotics, and it's just a good thing, very good thing. The other thing I will say is that the stage is being set up, as you can see, for the Shrek performance that will come March 4th and 5th and 11th and 12th. So I hope all of you will be able to attend. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeting. Next, we have our legislative update and discussion. Director Kelly.
Well, I have put my feelers out to talk to Karen Chase, who is our person to connect with regarding legislative updates. So I just need to reach out with her. I am not able to attend like Mark was on the Thursday lunches at noon. That was a wonderful time for Mark to make connections and get the insight. So I'm just looking to connect with our person at the larger, at the larger group. But I have nothing to report yet, just waiting for it. It's a quick session with the legislature. So just watching as things, kind of get put to the side and seeing what will come to the surface. So I'll hopefully have more to report the next time.
Thank you, Director Kelly. I'd like to open up the floor to all of our directors. I'd like to start with our students. Kyle, would you like to share anything?
All I would like to say is just that second semester is kind of underway now. It's been going very well, I think. It was a nice, smooth transition this time, and that's it for me.
Thank you. Maddie.
Yeah, as we're approaching fourth quarter, it's kind of become more surreal that this will be. I'll only have a couple more meetings and then be passing the baton over to Kyle. But yeah, I'm just excited to keep on going, and this year has been pretty great so far. So as best as it can be with COVID and everything, but I'm excited to be going forward and moving forward with everything in the mandates. And yeah.
Any comments from Director Kingman, Director Ray?
I would like to thank all the members of the community for showing up tonight. We'll see you at the next meeting, and happy Valentine's Day.
Director Knapp.
Sure. Well, just thank you everyone for being here. And this was my first time being here in person. So it was really nice to be able to sit with everyone up here and be in the same place. And Sherry, miss you, but next time maybe.
Thank you. I would like to just share a couple items from my experiences. Last week, I went to the legislative conference, well, a couple weeks ago, from WASDA, where we got to listen to a really great inspirational speaker, Shankar Vedant, and he talked a lot about the hidden brain. He has a podcast, and he was the keynote speaker, and he just really spoke to my heart about how we need to see each other with a different lens, with see each other with what we have in common, and to recognize that we have a shared purpose. And it just really spoke to my heart. And that's what I really hope that we can all agree on, is that we're all here because we want to do what's right by the kids. And then also I was very grateful to be part of the WASA Deep Equity Cohort with Dr. Tammy Campbell. And we talked a lot about reducing gaps and creating belonging in our schools. And we went through the exercise with our little group to prepare a vision statement. And it was pretty insightful and inspirational to try to grapple with how we close the opportunity gaps and we reach all students where they're at. And then I just want to close by sharing one quote from Martin Luther King Jr. as it is Black History Month and in honor of Valentine's Day. He said, "Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life. Love illuminates it." So on this Valentine's Day and in this Black History Month, I hope that we all can work on finding the love, finding the light, and finding the goodness all around us. Next thing on our agenda is our next meetings announcement. Our next meeting will be a study session on February 22nd to 22/22, and our next regular meeting will be on February 28th. Both meetings will be held at the BPEC starting at 6 p.m. The next thing on the agenda is our executive session. We will now recess this meeting so that the board may convene in an executive session for consideration of a minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease. I estimate that the executive session will last approximately 10 minutes, during which time no final action will be taken. Following the executive session, this meeting will be reconvened for the sole purpose of adjournment. You're welcome to stay here or you can sneak out. We will not judge. I think it's free.
Got it.
Dr. Sweeney, can I stay on this link or do I need to rejoin with a different? I think I've just turned on the phone. Okay, let's go back over here.
Barry, can you hear me?
I can. Do I need to go? I need to go in another meeting though, correct?
Yes, I sent you an email with the executive session Zoom.
Yeah, let me look on that. Let's see. That was today. I gotta find it.
So you'll leave this meeting and rejoin.
Okay, so I will go off of this meeting then. Just leave it completely?
Yes, leave it completely. We'll stay on and then you can join when you're done.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I think I need, yeah, I'll leave this one for a second.
The executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes.
welcome back. We are done with our executive session. We are back in our regular meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Madam Clerk, can you please take the vote?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.